friends. Welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number 118. Today is May 31st, 2024. I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks so much for joining me. I realize the light out the window is gorgeous, isn't it? It really is, but the light in here is a little odd, but I don't know. I'm not sure how to make it better. It's just how it is. As I say, this is Chapel Hill, North Carolina, where we had a couple of days that were very summer-like recently, and now it's in the upper 70s, which is pretty perfect. Now, let's have a show of hands. How many people within the past 48 hours have said, I can't believe it's already almost June? Where does the time go? Yeah, I think we've all said that, especially people over a certain age. High school students may not say that. Perhaps they don't, but most of us are astonished that it's already the end of May. It's already June. I know I am. Anyway, that is neither here nor there, I suppose. Thanks for joining me. As you know, Flosstube is about cross-stitch and Variety Show is about something else. Thanks to many of you for making book recommendations in the comments after my video last week and other comments about the books I mentioned. And also there were still a few recipes coming in for ways to use eggs. That's wonderful. I have a dozen eggs sitting on the counter right now, which are unwashed as of yet. I'm going to wash them when this video is done while it uploads, and then boil some of them because I let it be known through some pathways to my friend who gave me this batch of eggs that I would be happy to have some more eggs if she had any spare, which I know she does because she gets more than 2 dozen eggs a day, and I don't think she has an outlet for selling them yet. Of course, I would be willing to pay Shireen. So if you're watching this video, you can bring me some eggs. Okay, let's get down to business. Flosstube. Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather is one of 2 full coverage pieces I'm working on, and I'll put working on in air quotes because I'm really not working on the tiger, but I intend to, I really do. But this is Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather, charted by, why am I reaching around to put that away? I could just put it on the chair. Charted by Golden Kite. They are famous for charting paintings. This is an example. This uses about 50, 60, 70, 90, probably 90 threads plus blends, maybe more than 90. But I've been doing a lot of work up in the sky and the water, and I've also tried to go back into the bushes and into the women to pick up individual colors because I want to get it totally filled in and take out some more of this gridding and add it over on this side. But regardless, I mean, these individual stitches do not show on camera. But clearly they have to be stitched, don't they? Every stitch has to be stitched. Tons of confetti, just a lot of confetti. But what a result. I really can't wait to see that, you know, when it's been washed and pressed as best it can be. It's going to be something. I mean, I say as best it can be because I'm going to show you the back. In fact, I'm going to show you the back later, and I have a different piece in a little while. Now, there are so many, every now and then on certain of the Facebook groups that I'm part of, well, maybe more ones I used to be part of, there are eruptions of opinion about the importance of whether the back of your cross stitch is tidy or not. Now this is a full coverage piece and there is so much confetti. So let me just show you the rose bushes area there. There are probably 60 different colors in this little area, or blends, individual threads, colors or blends. So how do you make that area tidy on the back? And using the pin stitch is not recommended for full coverage, by the way. And so you have to run your thread in under. You can use the loop start. I do if it's an individual color. So if it's just 598, I use a loop start to use 2 strands over 1 Aida square on 18 count Aida. But if it's a blend, then you have to run the start and the end under other threads. So that's just how it is on the back of these things. But I'm going to show you the back. I don't want you to say anything, not one word about it. You can see there's a lot of running of threads. And especially down here in some of these areas where the stitching, the color goes along a path, and so do the threads on the back. And there's just not another, I do not really see another way to do it. Some of it's pretty thick. So when this is done and ironed, pressed, it won't, I'm not sure it will be completely flat even then, just because of the nature of the stitching. So hopefully it will still be impressive. Which brings me actually to the question of, so I was, you know, I watch some Flosstubes, quite a few Flosstubes. I was watching one this past week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. Well, actually in 2 or 3 different ones that I've watched in the past 6 months, the question of, oh, I'm not sure about my coverage, or this stitching looks uneven to me. And I look at this piece under the roof or some of the other pieces I work on, and I think this stitching looks uneven to me. I'm not sure of the coverage. And that's one of the real things that advantages, I think, to making a Flosstube videos, because when I show this, whoops, upside down. When I show this on the camera, I appreciate it. I can see it differently because I'm now looking at the camera. I look at that and say, my goodness, that is quite a, I mean, I can see those people. I see the roses. I see the ocean. It's actually the Mediterranean Sea, I believe. And that distance is a more realistic view of our stitching, isn't it? Because only we see it under 4 times magnification at a distance of 8 inches. Nobody else does. Even if it were hanging on the wall and I got right up close to it, I would not see it the way I see it while I'm stitching it. And so my critique of coverage or my stitching looking nice is not very realistic if I'm only basing it on what I see through the brightly lit magnifier. Therefore, it's good for me to make videos because I'm pretty self-critical too sometimes. Jane Thompson by the Scarlet House. I've shown you this. This was an exclusive through the Homespun Needlework Facebook group. So according to my calendar, I did work on it, and I can't remember exactly. I think I've carried on another line of the verse, and I may have put in some more parts to the flowers that go on that central band there. And I possibly did 1 or 2 more flowers along the outer border, might have, don't remember. But this is one of those that calls to me. As soon as I start working on it, I don't want to stop. But I stop because I have to go to bed, and then when I get up in the morning, something else calls to me, so. And actually, I stop because I want to have something, more variety to show on this video. Sampler 193 by 2x2 Stitch Art, Ukrainian designer. I looked back, I think I started this last June. I think I thought I might finish it in a year. No, but I will finish it this year. I fixed the part that was wrong and carried on, and it's correct over there on this side. That's where I'm working. I started on those circles. I didn't actually put in a lot of stitches this week on this. Not as many as I thought I would, partly because I was doing under the roof. I put in about 800 stitches on that. So that's pretty good. That's 1%-ish. I have 72,000. So 800 is about 1%, a little more. Nancy Cook. This is the special assignment piece for the run-up to the Great British Sampler Weekend #3, which is now being called Mrs. Parkman's Academy of Needlework in Swindon, England, next fall. So I finished out 2 full lines of alphabet, and I put in that border underneath, which is in a different color. It's in the lightest blue, and started on the next line of alphabet. And then this, I mean, you can't see probably, but this is the dark is a navy blue. And I'm using the recommended colors in this. The fabric is 36 count something by Fox and Rabbit. Anyway, it's 36 count. 1 strand of DMC over 1. And this is one of the places that I said, oh, my stitching is so bad. But from this angle, it's fine. The light is not good, but the stitching is fine at the distance. And when I look at the picture of the sampler, I mean, her individual stitches are probably fine. It's hard to tell in the picture. But the overall sampler is kind of higgledy-piggledy with 3 different colors of blue and the mistakes that she made. And it's just, I think, very quaint. So that's Hands Across the Sea, Mrs. Parkman, which, as she says, she doesn't go by Mrs. Parkman. But I'm also doing, so I forgot to mention this last week. I really should have, because it's so great. I want to be sure that you all hear about it. If you watch other Flosstubes, you've probably heard about it. Now this is actually a chart, but it's so small, I'm hoping that I'm not going to get any issues. But this is a sampler. It has a capital alphabet and numbers over here and a lowercase alphabet and some motifs. And a lot of specialty stitch lines that are mostly the stitches that are, well, they're specialty stitches, a lot of them. And Nicola is doing a series of videos she's calling this ABC, an intro to sampler stitching or something, I don't know. But I decided to do it. And so the 6 colors, 6 bright colors, and a lot of it is cross stitch over 2. And then this is running stitch. And I kept this in the hoop because I want to show you the back. Now, this back is not, I do not want you to think that Nicola's teaching it and that I would get any kind of an A for this. But I'm so impressed with what I could do. And I'm going to keep talking about it, and I'll just hold it up here until I finish talking about it, because I don't want you to look at the wrong thing. So the lesson this week was on the running stitch. And one of the problems with the running stitch is how to start it and how to end it, especially if you're afraid your thread will show through the linen. So she showed 3 different ways to start, and one of them is adaptable to ending. And this is the little section I did, which is running stitch every other stitch, and then it's staggered on the alternate rows with different colors. I think it really looks nice. And I'm not pleased so far with how my ending looks because you can see it. And you can see the starting, but you can see the starting much less. So now I'm going to show you. So I left it in the hoop because I wanted to be able to show you. So down here are the endings, so don't look at that. But the starting up there, those are pretty good. Part of what she's teaching is how to do all of these stitches and some of their cousins with great care, so that maybe you could move toward being able to do reversible cross stitch pieces, which there are some charts available even in the Hands Across the Sea catalog. And there have been a few others that I've seen. Now, I personally am not interested in reversible cross stitch in a sampler, but being able to do some type of embroidery that looks nice either side is interesting from the standpoint of doing napkins or hand towels or something. So anyway, I'm doing this. I'm watching her videos. She's an excellent teacher, and I do recommend that. I commend that to you. And then, speaking of Nicola and being an excellent teacher, we learned a lot of specialty stitches at the Queen City Sampler Guild workshop first weekend of May. This is Margaret Hutton. This was released to us at the workshop. Possibly it will be released generally next year, but I did work on this. Pardon the turquoise colored needle minder. So I carried the top border across, and I did that single line of cross stitch all the way across. And I might have done some more of the flowers in the border, and I definitely added more letters. I extended some of those top two specialty bands. This is the double back stitch, and this is a seed stitch. I realized in working on this, even on those two bands, the seed stitch and the double back stitch, something or other. Okay. That we were given instructions and little videos to watch about how to do these things. And those two, the instructions in the booklet, are perfectly adequate. I don't feel the need, especially using them in straight lines like this. The double running back stitch would only be used in straight lines, I'm pretty sure. But the seed stitch, rice stitch can be used other ways, but in this case, it's just a straight line. So then the next thing that happens is another regular cross stitch and another regular cross stitch band, and then the four-sided stitch. And that, in order to do it nicely and make it reversible, i.e. to be tidy and just crosses on the back, as mine is, because look at that. It's funny because things are backwards in the camera for me, and that is frontwards. So that's how I know that I'm showing you the back. The reason this is so nice is because I did it there at the workshop when Nicola was right there. The video, she had just shown us the video. It was all fresh in my mind, but it's not fresh in my mind now. So I keep thinking, okay, well, I'll go down there and I'll do some more four-sided stitch, but I'm watching a Flosstube or a Sudoku video or some other something or other on YouTube, and I have to pause it in order to really focus on creating my pathway through the four-sided stitch so that I will not put a thread wrong. Now I have gone ahead and worked on these illuminated letters because they are not, there's nothing about them that's intended to be reversible. And it's just a matter of being careful to put the little backstitch curlicue things where they go. This next line is just cross stitch, so I can do that. And then we get to eyelet. Again, I know how to do eyelet, but you need to plan your path so that you don't end up crossing the little hole. You don't end up with a thread crossing the little hole. And if you do it right, again, this was at the retreat. So it was fresh in my mind, and for the most part, I did it right. So most of that is pretty reversible. I mean, there is a thread there. There's a little bit of stuff that's not completely reversible as I'm looking at it. But it's pretty good. I want to do it at least pretty good going forward, but I'm going to have to do it when I can concentrate rather than when I am doing something else also, which, you know, that's fine. That is perfectly fine. But in the meantime, there's plenty of regular cross stitch in this so that I can make progress on it even when I can't do some of the specialty things. I also know from my own experience, and I think this is generally acceptable, good technique, that to learn something, you should do it and then take a break and then do it and take a break and do it and take a break. So that's what I'm also intending to do. Okay, then finally I'm going to talk about a start I plan to do in the next few days. But I'll talk to you first about this. This is a cone of DMC 321. I mean, isn't that luscious? Isn't that just a beautiful color red? So a cone has on it 425 meters or 100 grams of thread. Now this is a lot of thread. This is a lot of thread, probably 2 to 3 times as much thread as I'm going to need for what I bought it for, especially because I've decided I think that I'm going to do this over one, but I am going to start Harriet Salt 1866 by Hands Across the Sea. I bought this more than 2 years ago because I wanted to use some of the borders in the purple sampler, which I did. I used a few of these. And I thought that that was all I was going to do because it's a very large sampler. I was never going to stitch it. But when I went to when I went to England last fall with Leslie, and we visited the Bristol orphanages, the George Mueller Museum in Bristol, I got a bigger picture of what a reproduction sampler of a Bristol sampler could be, or could signify, or ought to signify maybe. And I decided that I wanted to stitch it. And so I have been moving in that direction, girding my loins for it, really. So I bought a large piece of, this is Russian Tea Cake by Legacy Linens. It's 37 count. And I cut it so that I have the piece I'm going to use for this. And let me just point out that this is large. So I did not cut the bottom. I didn't cut it to the lower dimension, but Sarah of Sarah's Stitchy Spot just finished Mary 395 on a very large piece of linen. I think she did it on 36 count. So very similar. And it was, I haven't looked at the Mary 395 chart to see how big the sampler is, but it's probably similar to this Harriet Salt one. But anyway, I'm going to do it on this. According to the pattern, this is the recommended color, 321. I mean, it is a matching color. And the linen, according to the pattern, is a little darker than this. I'm thinking it might be more like Sleeping Bear, which is what Jane Thompson is on. But I really like this color red, and you can just see it there, on this color linen. And I am happy to be doing it on this linen. So this is not a start. I started to write the word top, which I'm going to finish the word top just because, why not? So the T is 1 thread, and then the O is starting in 2 threads. And I was curious as to what my sense of appropriate coverage was going to be. So if I put it right up here, I think that's focusing. I don't know if it is, I can't tell. In the one thread section, it's over 2 threads of linen. In the one thread section, you can see the individual crosses very clearly, and in the 2 thread section, you can't as much. It's definitely a denser coverage. So the advantage of using 2 threads is the loop start, which with all these individual letters and things, sometimes one would not want to carry one's thread from letter to letter. Although as I look at this sampler, let me open to the centerfold. Most of it. So the bands I wouldn't carry, but in the alphabets, I think I would carry. Well, in many cases I would. And if the letter is large enough, like especially that large alphabet that it starts with, it's very easy to bury one's threads under there. Anyway, I might carry, might not. This linen is, for being a light color linen with a dark color thread, it's pretty opaque feeling. Now you might hear some noise because my husband is just coming in from a walk, but I do have threads sitting back there. Let's see, can you see them? That's hard for me to tell. With the light shining through, I guess you can, but it's not going to be framed with the light shining through. So my guess is it's going to be fine. Not a problem if I carry my thread from letter to letter. But anyway, that's what I'm going to do. Now this little this little basting area was partly to just check to be sure it really is 37 count, which it is, which it doesn't matter that much. But also because, if you can tell up here, the capital A in the first line is not all the way to the left margin. In fact, it doesn't get down to as far left as it eventually gets until right around in here. So I needed to have a place to start that I knew was going to still allow me enough margin once I get out to the truly farthest point. So that's why I put those lines in there. And as soon as I start stitching that A, I will take that out because I intend it to be, the A to be at the top of that, and it won't come to the side, but at least I'll take the top out so that I'm not getting myself tangled up there. And this is just a needle minder of The Hobbit. Doesn't that, it looks like the first edition book. Anyway, that is a start that I will be making. Now, this is not I'll finish this by Christmas project because this is 413 stitches square. On this count of linen, it'll finish at around 22 inches square. And there are 20 alphabets or something and 35, I don't know. But interestingly, when I received that bag, I'll have to show it another time because I can't really reach it from here. When I received the project bag at the Queen City Sampler Guild workshop at the beginning of the month, it's a large bag. It's 15 by 15 or so. And I thought, oh, this is bigger than I will ever, it's too big a bag. I don't need it. But I might need it. So, as you may know, I usually bobbinate my threads. I just fold over a 3x5 card and I cut a notch and then I cut slits on each side. And that's how I manage my threads. I store it in shoe boxes, DMC in numerical order. I do have weeks and other threads like that I've bought stored that way, and I do it with silk as well. And I have never had a problem, even with thread that has been on the card for decades, literally decades, with a kink in the thread resulting in some deformity of the stitch when the kink gets to that, when I get to the kink in the stitching. It just doesn't. It is not a problem. I don't do anything special. I don't wax my threads usually. I don't dip them in water or anything. I just stitch with them straight off the card. And I've never tried thread drops because I like bobbinating. I just have liked it. But I thought this, so between the fact that this comes in 450 yards, I can't put that on one 3x5 card, nor would I ever want to, and the fact that this is such a large sampler, I thought this might be the opportunity to try using thread drops. So last year at the Great British Sampler Weekend, Leslie gave as table favors this little group of thread drops. This is a barn in the Leroy area with a barn quilt, which if you're coming up to, if you by chance are coming to the Jane Boyer weekend in October, or Saturday in October, you really should drive around and look at the barns. And then this is thread drops that she made. And I think I'm going to use these. I'm going to create some bundles of threads pre-cut to a reasonable length and just try stitching from thread drops instead of bobbins. I don't think it's going to change my life. I don't think I'm going to say, oh, I'm going to unbobinate all of these threads and put them all on thread drops. Because one of the problems with thread drops, I've watched other people have this problem on YouTube and in Facebook and other places, is what do you do with your threads at the end of the project? How do you store them when you're not storing them with your project in an envelope or something? And that is a problem that I don't have a difficulty with because I have my shoe boxes. I just file them numerically where they go, and if I have just a little bit left and they're of equal age, they're about the same vintage threads, I just wind the smaller bobbin onto the more full bobbin, and or if it's something that I use in a lot of different projects, I just have multiple different cards of it, because then I can just pull out a bobbin of that thread to add to a project. So that isn't an issue for me, but that is an issue for some people. So, so speaking of Harriet Salt, the small amount of variety show that we're going to have today has to do with a website that I found, which I have put a link down below, and I think it's called, I don't remember, isn't that funny? I just wrote it down not long ago at all, and I don't remember what it's called. Path to Prayer.
S. That's another?
Hold on. Sorry. We have some problems here. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know what, I do know what that was, which I thought I was disconnected and on Do Not Disturb, but pathtoprayer.com is a website that has an extensive section of information about George Mueller. Now, George Mueller was the founder of the Bristol orphanages that Harriet Salt is an example of a sampler from. Sorry about the syntax there. Fascinating life. We learned about him and about the orphanages when we visited the museum in Bristol. And we saw some of these samplers. So a sampler like this, which I'm going to stitch it on 37 count linen, and it will be 22 inches square. The original, I think it says it in here, was on about 80 count linen. Let me find that opening page. But it doesn't matter what this one was. The point being that this, the girls who were living at the Bristol orphanages did not work on 37 count linen. They worked on very fine linen. Now, they were young, so they could see. That's one thing. And their work was impeccable. It was beautiful work. Not like Nancy Cook, for example, whose work is not beautiful. I'm sure that their Bristol samplers are of a variety of quality, but the ones we saw there that were on display in a special exhibition of about maybe, there might have been 12 samplers, were just amazing. So tiny. So something that's, I'm going to stitch at 22 inches square was about 11 or 12 inches square in the original. There's no possible way, probably even in my younger years, that I could have stitched it that small. Well, I probably could have, but nobody encouraged me to, and I didn't have fine threads to do it with and that kind of thing. So that's quite remarkable. A lot of information about the founding of the orphanages and about George Mueller's point in doing it, which was not only to serve orphans, but it was to demonstrate how reliable God is, that when we pray, he answers, and what mighty work God can do in our world. And I just thought that was an inspiring place to be, and it will be very interesting. And that's sort of what inspired me to stitch this sampler instead of just make use of parts of it. Not to say that it's wrong to make use of parts of samplers. It is perfectly fine. Harriet Salt did not make up these motifs. She was given a pattern book and she copied them. So she made use of other people's design work in creating this sampler. And all the other girls who stitched, and some boys who stitched samplers in Bristol, made use of other people's work. So that is not at all wrong. But I felt that I at least want to start. I mean, I'm not promising I'll finish this, although I probably will. I at least want to start to do this in the actual manner that Harriet Salt stitched it. That's my thing. Interestingly, the table favor, whatever, one of the gifts from the Great British Sampler Weekend last fall was this scissor block with excerpts from this Harriet Salt sampler. And I bought a little scissor fob which has Harriet Salt sampler excerpts on the little dealie there. That has a name, that dealie, whatever the dealie is called. So that's a start that's coming up. By the time I next make a video next week, I will have started this for sure. I might only have one letter done, but we'll see. This weekend is Blackbird Design BBD Weekend Sal, and I'll continue working on Mighty Oak, Mighty Acorn. Anything else going on? Oh, it's been Zipper Week this past week. Cindy and I will make a Galloping Horse video soon. I also made needle minders this week. So some time ago, I bought a bunch of these little heart-shaped needle minders from Wildflower Fox or something, from an Etsy shop. I was looking for something that was small and lightweight, and this was what I found, and I really liked them. And then for a while, her shop was closed, I think, and I wanted to get some more, and I couldn't find her. So I bought the materials to make my own, and I did. I made a lot. I have. So, by the way, it's kind of tricky to store needle minders because they are very magnetic. So you have to be careful. So I put them on these cards. This is a whole stack of them, and I bought some hearts, I painted them, I glued magnets to the back, just like she did. So here's the back of the magnet. You know what magnets look like, but this is what they look like. Now I have 300 times more than I need myself. No, I have a lot more than I'm ever going to use. I think I mentioned earlier in the year that I have it in mind that I might possibly open an Etsy shop this fall part of Zipper Week was learning some techniques to make some project bags and little pouches that have zippers, partly to use up the vast collection of zippers I've amassed over the years. We haven't really used up very much, but you know, you have to start somewhere. Anyway, I have these. If any of you wants one of them, well, it hasn't worked out in the past when I've said, if you want something, leave me a comment. Because I also realize it's been months. I said, if you want one of these Nerge hoops that I don't want, just leave a comment. I'll send it to you. And I never sent them. I know this because I came across them the other day. I said, oh, I promised to send these, and I never did. Well, sorry. Perhaps one of my videos will be just entirely devoted to giving things away. It should be. It should be. Okay, well, that has been enough nattering on. It turned out mostly to be Flosstube, didn't it? Very little variety show, except for a recommendation to that website if you want to learn more about George Mueller. I'll see you next week. I do plan to make a video next week, the normal time. It'll be June already. I hope you have a great weekend, rest of your day and weekend of stitching and doing anything else you may have planned, starting off the month of June with a bang, with a new start, or tying up your tomato vines or something. And I hope to see you again next week. Thanks so much for joining me. I so appreciate it. I enjoy your comments and enjoy your enjoyment. Many blessings to you, friends.